Hi, I'm Bonnie. 23 years ago, I was able to donate a kidney to my younger sister. My younger sister, Chris, is 14 years younger than I. In her late 20s, she contracted a uremic infection and her kidneys began to fail. Being on dialysis was very difficult for this normally healthy, vibrant young woman. And it was hard for us to see it happen to our baby sister. My sister's kidneys failed not because of a genetic disorder. Nobody in the family on either side had any history of kidney disease. It was an infection. It happened, it wasn't caught in time. We were really surprised at the various reasons that your kidneys can fail. But the bottom line is, when they do, there really are very few alternatives. When my sister contacted her other siblings, myself, a sister a year younger than I, and a brother 2 years younger, we all agreed, of course, we would be tested. It turned out that myself and my other sister were both considered good candidates, good matches. The doctors determined that my other sister would be the better donor. She didn't have a weight problem and was overall in better health. I was really disappointed, but obviously I felt that was the best move for my sisters. Unfortunately, 4 years later, another infection went undetected in time and my sister lost the donated kidney. When she called me again and asked, would I be willing, there was never a question. Of course I was. This was my baby sister. I had an advantage of having watched my younger sister donate 4 years earlier and be aware of the pre-transplant procedures, all the testing. I was a little concerned about the pain. I had had a lifelong fear of needles. And yes, there's a lot of blood tests done before the transplant, along with an arteriogram to determine which is your better kidney to donate. But all in all, I was so mentally ready for this. I really didn't give it a lot of thought. Being a parent, my husband and I have 2 sons. At the time, they were 10 and 14 years of age. The 14-year-old was pretty aware of what was going on. The 10-year-old, not so much. He was afraid for mom. And quite frankly, as a parent, you have to consider what happens if somewhere down the road your child needs a kidney. But the bottom line was, this is something that was in immediate need. My sister needed that kidney now. I had a lot of support from my family. I still have the envelope full of get well letters that I got from my 10-year-old's class. It was in all a very supportive and rewarding experience. Before the transplant, I had the advantage of knowing what my younger sister had gone through. I had some concerns about recovery time. Again, my irrational fear of needles. I was working full time, a little concerned about the time I'd be taking off from work. But I also had the distinct advantage of the transplant being done in the same medical center where I have been working now for over 20 years. I knew I had a lot of sick leave on the books. I figured if I have to use it all, I will. I had decent insurance. At the time, I wasn't aware what kind of coverage there would be. And so I approached this perhaps naively, but thinking everything is just going to be fine. I found myself really relying on the transplant coordinator, who was somebody that I'd had the opportunity to get to know previously, but to go to her for answers to a lot of the questions I had. She was an incredible resource and a very open and friendly person, as were the nephrologist and the surgeon, both of whom made me feel a lot better about what was coming and what I could expect. One thing that I was kind of surprised to find out was that it's difficult, or was then, to find people to talk to who had gone through this before. Of course, I have my sister. I was able to talk to her about her experiences. But other than speaking with the transplant coordinator and the surgeons, there really wasn't much in the way of person-to-person contact. I did read. I looked into what kidney donation involved, and it pretty much reflected exactly what I've been told by my transplant coordinator and the surgeons. This is something that I think, at least then, was missing from the whole transplant process. In terms of the financial outlay that being a kidney donor involved, I really didn't give it a lot of thought. I did find out after receiving a rather large bill from the hospital and contacting the billing department that I should ignore it because this was all covered by government insurance. I can see where this would definitely be a concern for people. It was not mentioned beforehand, and it could be my fault for not looking into it. But again, it's something that any prospective donor should consider. Again, I had a lot of leave on the books and a very supportive department head who assured me that I wasn't going to lose anything by taking off as much time as I needed. I was very fortunate in that respect, but it is something that prospective donors really should look into. In my first meeting with the surgeon who was handling my end of the transplant process, he suggested that I take the months remaining before the actual transplant to lose some weight. He said I would feel better and that the risk of infection would be reduced. And he was right. I did put in a pretty extreme effort and lost a significant amount of weight. It did make a difference in how well the surgery and the recovery went. Unfortunately, I didn't really maintain that lifestyle as diligently as I should have. The surgery itself took a little more than 4 hours. 23 years ago, the laparoscopic transplant process was not being done very widely. And so my transplant involved an incision of about 13 inches and the removal of my left lower rib. I nevertheless went home 4 days later and was recovering for about 3 weeks. Went back to work part-time, but after a week decided there really isn't any reason that I can't be working full-time, and did so and felt fine. Now, it's not saying that there wasn't any pain or discomfort. You get sore when an incision like that is made in your body. But I think the worst pain I experienced was the first time I sneezed after the transplant. You're really not prepared for that. But all in all, I did feel fine. I felt that I could resume my normal life and did so. When I was in the hospital after the surgery, I had visitors almost all the time. Again, I had worked and was still working in this medical center. I knew an awful lot of people. In retrospect, it would have been very wise for me to simply say no visitors for a while. I was tired. The other thing I would encourage people to do is don't be a martyr. If it hurts, ask for the pain medication. You're not going to be taking it for very long, but you will appreciate it when you have it. The one moment that I remember most deeply post-surgery didn't happen until about 5 years after the transplant. My younger sister and I myself were visiting our youngest sister in Tennessee, where she is a psychologist for the VA. She took us to the hospital to look around and introduced us to the head of the department. And he looked at us and just said with this marvelous Southern drawl, the life givers. And that really made it hit. It made me realize, yeah, that's what we are. I would say that I was fully functional within a month after the surgery. My concerns about feeling different, about noticing that my body was reacting to things differently or performing differently, were completely unfounded. You don't know that you're missing a kidney. Physically, nothing changes. The only thing that I and my younger sister have both noticed is that when the weather gets really warm and at our advanced age, when our ankles begin to swell, our left ankles swell more than the right. Following the surgery, I stayed home for 3 weeks, caught up on sleep, and didn't find myself unable to perform normally. I could walk around, I could climb stairs. That's not to say there wasn't some discomfort and some pain. Remember that first sneeze, and actually any other subsequent sneeze that I didn't back up against a wall to cushion before it happened. But other than that, I found no limitations, and my recovery was really pretty uneventful. After donating that kidney, I fully expected to feel different, to notice that physically things had changed. But I didn't. You really, honestly, have no awareness that there's anything missing from your body. Bodies are extraordinarily resilient, and they adapt to changes quite easily. My diligence in losing weight before the transplant, unfortunately, is not something that I kept up with. But other than that, I've remained in good health ever since. I think what surprised me most following the transplant surgery was how very resilient our bodies are. I anticipated a lot more discomfort, fatigue, change to my general physical health than actually happened. Your bodies are very resilient. They adapt to change pretty impressively. And my life really hasn't changed at all. My husband and I are both involved with Life Sharing. It's an organization that promotes awareness of and education about organ donation. We speak with high school students. My husband is a corneal transplant recipient. When I share that I was a living donor, donated a kidney, the first question is almost always, how does it feel? And my honest answer is, it doesn't. You're not aware that you're missing a kidney. And apparently your body isn't either, because it functions perfectly normally. Then they ask, well, did it hurt? And I honestly say, yes, there's discomfort, there's some pain, but it passes. The last question is often, why did you do that? For me, it was an easy, why not? This was somebody I cared about deeply, somebody who I knew really needed this kidney at the risk of losing her life. Looking back over the last 23 years, what surprises me most was probably that there really were no surprises. I thought maybe at some point my body would start reacting very differently. I thought I'd be more aware of the fact that I was missing a kidney, but those didn't happen. Life went on as it had before. So I guess what surprised me the most was the lack of surprises. Looking back, I think the best part about donating my kidney was that I could, that I had the opportunity. It was a tremendous sense of affirmation. And then there's the fact that I knew everybody in the OR room, and was visited by some members of the anesthesia team while I was still in the hospital. And they showed me a picture that they had taken of my kidney in the pan prior to its being delivered to the OR suite where my sister was waiting. They named it Big Sucker, and they gave the photograph to my sister, and as soon as she got back to Tennessee, she hung that on her office wall where it remains today. Finally, I think the best advice I would give anyone considering being a living donor is to do your homework. Make sure that this is something you're ready for physically and, more importantly, emotionally. Don't worry about how you're going to feel afterwards. I cannot believe that anyone who has gone through this process doesn't feel more positively about themselves. You are giving life, and that is possibly the most precious gift we can give to anyone.